Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to a great episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. As you know, I am Bob Van Buren, your host. I'm here once a week, welcoming back all the regulars that come tune in week after week live, and even those that don't see the live show but watch the recordings later. Thank you very much for the support. Also, the newcomers, I'm glad to say and see a lot more subscribers coming in. So if you're new to the show and you haven't seen the show yet, and you kind of want to know more what it's about it, well, the third word of Van Buren Variety should tell you what you need to know. Variety. Every week I have an individual guest on to talk about a different topic. It could be the person's hobby. It might be just a general interest in something. Maybe play an instrument for us, or maybe a how-to segment. So every week it's a different guest and a different topic. So you never know what you're going to see here. So appreciate the viewership, but if you like the guest tonight and you like the topic, there's that like button you can pick, and to make me feel really good, build my ego a little bit more, there's that subscribe button. So I really like that. So if you like the show, subscribe. If you don't like it, well, there's an email at the end. Just say, hey, Bob, I hated it. But hey, I take it. I can take criticism. So hope you've all had a great week so far. I got an interesting guest and that you probably all know. But I got to share something with you. And before you know it, yes, I'm ancient. So I still have DVDs. I know a lot of people don't have DVDs anymore. But my collection is complete as of now. Because for years, I had this DVD, which we all know and love, Top Gun. But yesterday, I bought a brand new DVD. I've got the new Top Gun Maverick. And listen, I'm going to tell you, folks, let me put you a little commercial here. If y'all haven't seen this yet, if you like the first Top Gun, I guarantee you will like Top Gun Maverick. I saw it at the movie theater, and so now I've got the best of both worlds, and I even still have from the movie theater my official Top Gun Maverick souvenir cup. So there's ancient Bob Van Buren for you. So anyway, there's my pitch. So hope you like it. I like the first Top Gun. I saw it in the movie theater. Yes, I'm that old. And I saw the new one too. So now I've got the DVDs. So hopefully y'all will like these movies too. Okay, if I get it upside down there. Whatever. We're not here to talk about Top Gun. We've got a very serious topic to talk about tonight. True crime stories and also serial killers. What drives them to it? What happened? What was their crime? How could they do it? And I've got a guest on that I'm sure you all know and love by now. So without further ado, I will bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure most of my subscribers here know this is, but for those of you that maybe have subscribed to my channel, this and not his, this is Tex Wesson of Texas Front Porch. Welcome, Tex, to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Man, I appreciate it, Bob. I love jumping on here when I get a chance. We're so far apart, that
we're hundreds of miles, literally.
Apart. We're hundreds of steps away.
Hundreds of steps, I think we should say, but we never see each other other than here.
Well, not with this new schedule, man. It's rough. But we get back in the swing because we were hanging out about once or twice a week when I was on day shift.
At least, yeah. So I'm still working my day shift. So maybe if you get some time off, or maybe I get some time off, we can go, hang out again, catch up some more.
Well, we and about once a month we kind of started this little tradition thing we got going because Randy works over here by us, so the three of us try to get together about once a month and have dinner.
If we're lucky.
Yeah. Well, me and Bob kind of have a guilty pleasure. There is an 80s themed arcade right down the road from us. And it's like $10 cover. You go in there and it's all you can play.
Mm-hmm.
They've got all the good stuff, man. And you actually interviewed the guy that owns the place.
Right after you. He was my second episode. You were my very first guest. He was my second guest.
Mike, isn't it?
Mike, a great guy. And very, very smart too.
Yeah, he is. He rebuilds all of his own video games. He'll buy them all junked out and everything, put them all back together. But anyway, I digress, I guess. But I don't get to discuss this topic on my show very much, and it's kind of a fascination of mine.
Mm-hmm.
The whole true crime and especially the serial killer thing, because it's it's not the blood and the gore and all that kind of stuff. It's the
No.
mindset of these people. And when I really got to studying it, one of the things that I found out was, you know, all psychopaths are not killers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all psychopaths are not serial killers, but all serial killers are psychopaths.
Absolutely.
And what we run into with psychopathy is you see it a lot in corporate headhunters, in big CEOs, even mid-level management, that type of thing. But there's something along their road of life, that, as far as a serial killer goes, that I think they're all born a little broken. Okay, there's something in their head, that empathy, that remorse factor. They don't have it. Um, they and I think when they go down the road of life, and there's something that triggers them, and they go in one direction or go the other. But you're talking about these people that can walk in, and folks, it's only too sad that we know this a lot, and this happens so much. But you'll read about, you know, hundreds of people getting laid off right before Christmas.
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's the kind of people that are doing this, because they don't care. You're just a number to them. You've heard that expression before, and that's exactly what you are, because they don't see other people as people. That's why a lot, when you see, especially when you see kids go missing and stuff, and it was very well done, I thought, in the movie um, Silence of the Lambs, when the
Yes.
senator's on the TV, and she keeps using the child's name. That's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get the abductor to see her as a human and not an object, because they tend to objectify, and then even in the famous line from that movie, when he's got her down in that well, and he goes, it puts the lotion on the skin. He's dehumanized her, and you see him struggle with that a little bit. I thought they did that really well.
That was good. Yeah, that was. Well, let
Yeah,
me ask you, do you think it's, I mean, just asking your opinion, do you think it's something that's triggered from their upbringing, from their childhood? I think a lot of it could be that. Maybe there was no love, maybe there was abuse. I mean, could it grow from that?
well, there's an ongoing debate on if they're born that way or if they're made that way. I think it's a combination of the two. Um, because most serial killers, not all, but most serial killers, that when you dive into their background, there is some kind of abuse in their childhood. Um, they have problems fitting in and that type of thing. They're
Outsiders.
most of them are loners and that type of thing. But there's also those that can blend in very, very well, and that's why they call them chameleons. Because you take Gary Ridgway, for example. Um, he was married 2 or 3 times. He was in the military. He held a long-term job, which is kind of hard for these folks, because they have to lead a double life,
For
right?
sure.
BTK was another one that did that. John Wayne Gacy did it, you know. But
But once they get the taste for killing, I mean, life has no meaning. I mean, the
no,
human
they
conscience
don't
is
place
gone.
any value on it at all, and they're trying to. it's I can't remember which one of them said it now. It's the he literally said there's something. I think it was Ted Bundy actually. There's something broken in all of us, and when he's talking to all of us, he's talking about you know psychopaths. And but it's like I was saying, you go down the road of life, and maybe they had a good upbringing, and they don't get triggered, and that little part of them, they don't go down that evil road of life as far as killing goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they still have that mentality, they still have that mindset, and like a corporate headhunter, he gets that thrill from having that control.
Yeah, it's like domination. It's like they have power over another living thing, and it might even start out with just animal abuse,
Oh yeah,
physical animal,
that's
and then it graduates into the
well,
human. It could be, yes.
well, they normally do that. They'll graduate from petty crimes. They'll start out with abusing their toys. They'll start out, being mean to siblings, that type of thing, and
And
then
pets,
they'll,
Yeah.
and then pets, and it, it a perfect example. Everybody when we have a have a ongoing situation here in the Fort Worth area that my neighbor um, found some dismembered cats thrown over his back fence.
Oh man.
And he's a cat lover.
Well,
And yeah, I know. And you know me, I'm not real fond of cat. Well, they're not real fond of me,
my
but
cat runs from you. Not that she hates you. And ladies and gentlemen, Tex has not done anything bad to my cat. But when Tex comes over, this cat runs like her tail's on fire. She's scared to death of him. I don't know why. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But they never have like me. I don't know if my sister's cat told on me for putting him on the record player when I was younger or what. But
You go
anyway,
ahead. Sorry.
He had a couple of dismembered cats thrown over his, and I've got pictures, but we don't need to look at them.
No, that's fine.
Thrown over his fence in his backyard, and it just broke his heart,
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about it, and he goes, "I just don't understand what's going on. Why would somebody do this?" I said, "I don't want to spook you, buddy, but we may have a budding serial killer, a psychopath at the very least."
Mm-hmm.
In the area. Well, it turns out that his wife had done some research, and there's been 42 incidents like that recorded in the Fort Worth area.
Wow.
So in the last year or two. And so there is, I think a budding psychopath, or they're definitely a psychopath. There could be a budding serial killer in the works.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, the FBI says that there's at any point in time, there's 200 to 300 active serial killers across the U.S.
That's scary.
And they say that's a very conservative estimate. And you don't find them a lot that work in pairs or teams, but it does happen. Henry Lee Lucas and O'Toole were a couple. I can't remember the guy's name. He had a bunker, and he had an Asian partner. And there's always one that takes the dominant role.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, across the pond, you've got the Roses, which was a very tragic story. They even killed their own kids and buried them in the flower garden and stuff.
Horrible.
But I can't remember where I saw this interview or heard this interview. I believe he was called the Interstate. And there's been several of these that were coined the Interstate Killer, but this was the first one, I believe. And they were interviewing him after they caught him, and he said that there was a ring of 7 of them.
Oh, wow.
That worked together. They were all over the road truck drivers.
Almost like the Manson family, almost.
Yeah, almost. And
wow,
they had codes that they would use on the CBs, and they would meet and they would exchange victims. One would get, and oh, I've got, this, that, and the other thing. Well, I'll swap you this one for that one. And they would continue to, swap victims and, do their thing with them. And he said one of them in the ring was a female. That's pretty rare for a female serial killer. They haven't cut. But the thing about, female serial killers tend to off their victims that's where you get a lot of the Black Widows. That's where the Angels of Death and that type of thing. So they tend to lean more towards poisoning for the most part.
For sure.
The brutal stuff that you hear about, that tends to be a male-dominated area. And a lot of people have the misconception that, the serial killer phenomenon is isolated to the United States, and it's not.
There's worldwide.
There's serial killers all over the world. The most prolific serial killer, if I remember, he was in Russia or Ukraine. He killed a couple of 100 kids.
Yeah, that was in Russia. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember the name. But
he would collect their shoes. Let's see, where is it? New Zealand. They just released a serial killer not too long ago because is it New Zealand?
Yeah, they don't have a death penalty there, I don't believe.
Yeah, and their maximum prison sentence is 15 years.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, he was just getting out. Well, there's argument that there's no rehabilitating these folks, unfortunately. Most of them tend to either find God or at least say they find God. Some of them kill under the name of the name of God.
I was going to say that there's a lot of them that have this misconception of the Holy Bible, and they twist it to what they want it to say and out of context.
That's the Holy Bible is just like the Quran. In let me explain that before everybody goes off on the deep end here. It can be
manipulated.
It can be manipulated to say whatever they want. All it takes is a emotional manipulator to do that. David Koresh is a good one.
There's a good example right there.
Osama bin Laden, and the Taliban. There's teachings in the Quran that there's teachings that they do that are not they're not part of Islam. They're really not. And it's the same thing with the Christian faith. There's things that are the Kool-Aid guy, Jim Jones.
Yeah.
Now, about him, now they found out that the thing about it is when they first started their outfit, he was the first church they attracted everybody, whites, blacks, and And
Yeah, there was no bigotry, anything as
no,
far as that goes.
no,
They took everybody in.
yeah, and it started out really as a good thing. Well, he got into dope, and the power trip went to his head, and all that kind of stuff, which happens with these cult leaders. They tend to see themselves as a god role. David Koresh said he was the second coming, and then you have the other flip side of the coin, where like David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, he claimed that his neighbor's dog told him to do all the killing. Well, then he changed his story, you know. Well, now he's actually basically a minister in prison, and but I don't know if you can say that he's been rehabilitated, but I also think, now this is just my opinion because I do believe in this stuff, that some of these people are they I've kind of coined a term that it's called acute possession, and I really used it to explain these a lot of these women that go off and they kill their kids, and up until that point they were normal, they wouldn't hurt a fly and everything, and after they do it, they either don't have any recollection or do it that they did it, or they don't know why they did it. Something just told them to do it.
Darlie Rotura comes to mind in North
And
Texas
yeah,
where she killed her
yeah.
kids.
And I think a lot of these women that are dealing with postpartum depression, that's an open door for these entities to jump in and take a foothold, and then they take them over. They have them jollies with them. They make them kill them kids, and then they're out. And they sit back and watch the aftermath.
Wasn't that the lady in South Carolina, North Carolina? Her name was Susan Smith. She strapped her kids to the car
Right,
and then drove the car into the lake. In other words, she jumped out and then her kids drowned. I remember
right,
that story too. So sad.
There's a lot of sad stories like that.
Yeah. But
But
wait, I'm sorry.
we were talking off air about one of the most famous cases, and it led to something that still goes on today. And this took place back in the 70s, wasn't it, Bob?
Halloween of 1974.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of you may remember hearing the name, the Candyman. Well,
I'll
there
show
was
a
a series
picture.
of movies called the Candyman. Well, there was an actual Candyman serial killer, or he wasn't a serial killer.
His real name was Ronald Clark O'Brien. This is him.
Yeah.
He has been executed, and for those of you in Texas, y'all will probably know he got the nickname Candyman for a very horrific reason. On Halloween of 1974, he bought a whole bunch of pixie sticks and he put cyanide poison in them. And he was already like $100,000 in debt. He took some extra life insurance out on his son and his daughter. You can figure out where I'm going with this. He gave his kids the pixie sticks with the cyanide poison in them. Luckily, Godspeed, the daughter did not eat it. The son did. And he talked about his father. He said, well, this sure is bitter. His father actually gave him Kool-Aid to wash it down with. The son starts convulsing, vomiting. The father holds him in his arms as his 6-year-old son is laying dying from the poison that his own father gave him for insurance money.
Yep. Now, like I said, this started a whole thing that is nationwide now, and we still talk about it. And that is the whole check your candy and the razor blades and the apples, that type of thing. Now, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but this is where that started.
Yes.
And that it kicked off, basically a panic, and therefore, and still today,
Of Halloween candy. You got to check your kids' candy.
you check your kids' candy, and the thing about it is, does it do does it do a lot of good to check the candy? Because if they're smart about it, you're not going to see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, because what he did in this guy's case, he actually, when he bought the pixie sticks, most pixie sticks, there's staple, there's a staple in it, or
Mm-hmm.
it's sealed somehow. What he did, he got the cyanide poisoning, opened the pixie stick up, he put the cyanide on top, and then restapled it.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reason why he gave some other kids pixie sticks, he didn't want to quote unquote, look like it was only his kids that got it. Luckily,
Right.
the other kids in the neighborhood that he gave those to didn't eat it. So he was claiming it came from this house that didn't have a light on. It was all a big lie.
Right.
And but yeah, it come out he was, well, back then, this is 1974. They said he was $100,000 in debt, which would equal about a $500,000 now. How would you get that much in debt? And then the biggest question: how can you kill your kids? Oh, and they found out. I don't know if I mentioned this. Just prior to that, weeks, months before, he upped the life insurance benefit on both of his kids. Now you
Yeah.
can't tell, yeah, obviously.
And I'll tell you something that my mother, now my family's from Texarkana. So, and if you've ever seen the movie Black Sunday or The Town That Dreaded Sundown,
Mm-hmm.
that it's about the serial killer that was roaming that area. And my mother, when she was a teenager, worked in a soda shop, an old
Mm-hmm.
fashioned soda shop, in the back of a pharmacy. And her and her one of her best friends worked in there. Her best friend turned out to be one of his victims.
Wow.
So, and then we also know a young lady that almost became a victim of a serial killer,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
and that is Anita Collier.
Yep.
She almost fell victim to a serial killer in Alabama at one point. Um, so it's weird. They talk about, oh, it's a small world. It really is. I mean, to actually know people that,
Would go that
I don't
far.
know anybody that was killed, but you know, it's pretty close calls if you ask me. But yeah, the whole serial killer mindset, I'm fascinated with, because it's how do you, where, that switch that don't does it get turned on, I think, from birth.
Yeah,
And
I
then
agree.
when they go, when you throw that in there with, you know a, an abusive father and a domineering mother, and like you were saying, no love in the house, and that type of thing, and the beatings, and especially says
Yeah.
sexual abuse as a young kid,
Yes.
that seems to be the trigger for these people that are already broken. That
Mm-hmm.
um, Ted Bundy. I mean, there's reports out there that he had a good life, and he did have a good life. I mean, he was, the judge actually told him it's a shame that he went down the path he did, because he could have been a really good
He
lawyer.
was a genius. I'd heard him. He
Yeah.
was real smart.
um,
So.
and he was um, he was kind of a the reason he's so many people are it's Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer y'all are talking about. Um, but they I mean, he supposedly had a good upbringing, and
Mm-hmm.
he blamed all his stuff on getting in an addiction to porn, and when they interviewed him, if you want to hear a fascinating interview, and is when they're interviewing him the day before he gets executed, and
Mm-hmm.
he's very matter of fact about everything, and he's talking about how to spot these guys, and these people and everything. Yeah, it's Gary Ridgway. the Green River Killer. He was um, uh, he was prosecuted for 49 killings, I do believe, and but they think there was
Yeah.
probably a lot more.
Oh, sure. I'm sure.
So it's there was one killing that I don't think was his because it really didn't fit his MO. It was strange because they found the victim with their hands on her chest and a salmon laying on her chest, I believe.
Mm,
Really weird.
that's strange. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a one off. And so, and like I said, he was one of the ones that kept up that double life, a lot like John Wayne Gacy did. You know,
Hmm.
John Wayne Gacy was a pillar of the community. I mean, the whole. He didn't dress up as a clown to kill people. He dressed up as a clown doing kids' birthday parties and that type of thing. Pogo.
Well, the guy I just showed you earlier, what I call the Candyman, the Halloween killer,
Mm-hmm.
he said he was a deacon at a church.
Mm-hmm.
He sang in the choir and even drove a local bus program. So
Yeah.
he's a pillar of the community and just money got the,
Well, BTK was and a lot of these serial killers, they want to be in a role of dominance or authority.
yeah, controlling,
And
the word
yeah,
controlling.
and you'll see them a lot as security guards. You'll see them a lot as sometimes they just can't make it into law enforcement, but they want to be there because it's
Hmm.
an authoritative role. Well, he was a he worked for the city. He was a code enforcement officer, and he would literally get out and break out a ruler and measure your grass
Wow.
and
Mm.
give people tickets for it. There was one episode or something that happened where he this lady's dog got out. He captured the dog, um, and then gave her she had I don't know so many days to come get the dog, and he killed it before she got a chance just to see her suffer. You know
Wow.
that type of
Horrible.
thing. Um, so and well, Angel played. She said it sounds like a control freak. They all are.
They are very much controlling.
All of them are control freaks. That's just it. They're all narcissists. And
I've known some
um,
of those in my life.
oh yeah, yeah. Um,
They got to control, controlling. That's their middle name, control.
yeah,
And you had a good word, narcissism. I mean,
yeah. That we see a lot of that. You see a lot of that in your politicians, and your
on
upper
both
level
sides.
management and stuff like that. You see a lot of it on YouTube. You know, um, unfortunately, in the community that we're mixed up in, the cryptid and paranormal and all that. Um, thank you, be kind, love you too. And it was just, you know, it's really sometimes it can be hard to spot these people,
Hmm.
but when you have people that are it's me, they're never
Hmm.
wrong. They're just always the smartest person in the room.
And if you call them out, they play the victim.
Oh
How
yeah,
dare
oh
you
yeah,
call me down here? And here I knew someone. She could cry on cue.
oh yeah,
I mean, but she would be the aggressor, and she was the mean. She's going to tell you off. But if you call her down,
oh yeah,
I had no choice. I had to do what I did. In other words,
yeah,
she's flipped the script. I mean, a lot of people are like that.
yeah. And that's the way you can pick these people out. If you really, really sit back and if you don't let yourself get into their what they're talking,
Yeah.
into what they're selling. You just stand outside of that bubble and you really listen to what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they say is revolved around them.
Yeah.
They and everybody else was wrong. They're right. And it's like it's like when I say, I'm not going to tell, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, but I'm going to tell you why I'm right.
Yeah. And they have no emotion. They have no sympathy for anybody else.
No, they do not.
They could care less about your feelings.
Now
Your
they can
feelings are
pretend.
as irrelevant as can be to a narcissist.
Yeah, they can pretend
Mm-hmm.
very, very well, and they're very good at manipulating.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very hard to. It's they can get their hooks in you.
Mm-hmm.
Playing that sympathy card.
The victim card.
Yeah, and
Yep.
then they flip it on you.
Oh yeah.
So just watch. If somebody's talking and it's all about them, you never hear them apologize. You never hear, and everybody else is at fault.
Yeah, it's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah,
Yes.
put the brakes on and go. Okay, wait a minute. Let me
Yeah.
really see how this person. Step outside that bubble and just try to let yourself soak it in.
Probably best to walk away.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Because it's not somebody you want to get involved with.
No, it's not.
Really
Mm-hmm.
not.
Hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to back up a little bit. There's some more killers I'd like to talk about. But, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the Candyman killer earlier. I have discovered online, just for those of you that just came in, this guy back in Halloween of 1974 killed his own son with poison candy to collect life insurance money, which is horrific. So, but I managed to find old 8mm film of when this story broke. Now, it's kind of long, so I'm only going to play a couple of minutes of it, but you'll get the gist. And then, like I said, the whole neighborhood and city, or actually, the whole country was appalled. This went from California to all the way to New England to Florida to Washington State, and especially in Texas where it happened. And so let me just give you an idea of kind of what happened or what the news reports looked like 40 years ago. If I can get that for you.
Any of it, and now friends and family are paying their final respects.
Some of these small Tootsie Rolls turned in, only 2 so far. Inside these Tootsie Rolls have been placed 1.5-inch long sewing needles lengthwise inside the candy. You can open the ends and insert the needles with no trouble at all.
Pasadena police are warning parents to check trick-or-treat candy like this and to throw it out if they find anything suspicious. There were children who were neglecting these warnings and as late as last night were still out trick-or-treating. Sandra Feldman, Eyewitness News.
Hours. And cyanide, for example, is the basis for the gas chamber execution wires.
This is the funeral, and the father is there crying. This is before he was arrested, but he's the one that killed the kid.
Astonishment. I can't comprehend. I've got a little 4-year-old girl, and it's something that you just can't put into words.
Filed against Ronald Clark O'Brien, white male, 30, Tex Wesson.
At 11:50 p.m. on 11/4/74, a charge of murder by poisoning was filed against Ronald Clark O'Brien, white male 30, of 746 West Parktown, Deer Park, Texas.
Well, y'all get the picture.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was big news at the time, y'all. Some of y'all that were around probably remember it. Those of you that weren't around, well, now you know where all the Halloween scares came from.
Yep. And yeah, Angel played, was he the father? Yes, he was the father.
Yes.
So, yeah, he killed him for insurance purposes.
But justice was done. He was executed on March 31st, 1984, almost 10 years later.
You were talking about other serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most fascinating cases to me is Albert Fish. Now, Albert Fish, known as the werewolf of Wisteria, the vampire of Brooklyn, I believe, the Gray Man.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He killed and molested hundreds of kids, but he only got popped for one, and that was his last victim, Grace Budd. And the interesting thing, I was talking earlier about chameleons. Now, he would pretend to hire, give kids a job he said he was a wealthy farmer, and he would, give these kids, and this is in the Depression era, folks.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of kids, they would go out and they would work, they had to help with the family. Well, he had answered an ad about a 17 or 18-year-old kid that was looking for work. He went to their house to meet him. Well, once he met the young man, he figured he was too big for him to handle. So his 10-year-old sister walked in. He immediately shifted focus to her, Grace. And he sat there with the parents and convinced them to let him take Grace to his niece's birthday party.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There it is.
And she left. The mother was hesitant. She didn't really want to let her go. The father talked her into it. She never gets out. We're so poor that she don't see anything, and she don't get to do anything fun. Let her go have some fun. And they let her go with this man. Now, on the subway, he had his murder kit with him. He had a satchel or where he had his tools. And when they got off the subway, he forgot them and let them in the seat.
Oh, wow.
And she was fixing to jump off the subway into his arms. And she goes, "Oh, wait, you forgot your package." She turns around and goes and gets them and hands them to him and jumps down in his arms. And then he takes her and he kills her and dismembers her and proceeds to eat her. And he wrote a letter. This is the only time he did this. He wrote a letter to the family describing all of that and what he'd done to her. And basically said, it's your fault. If you hadn't let her go.
Again, passing the blame. That's what narcissists do.
Mm-hmm. She would still be alive, and I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at. If she hadn't if she had not went and got that package that he left on the subway, he said she'd still be alive, and I wouldn't be sitting here where I'm at.
That so much reminds. Oh, wait.
To me, two things. That takes it to that takes being sadistic to a whole new level for me. To actually write the family
Yeah,
and
that's
tell them
horrible.
what he had done to their daughter. The one thing he did not do was brutalize her, assault her
Yeah.
in a sexual way. You have to be careful what you say. And he told him that. He said, I could have, but she died a virgin.
You know,
But
that's
he the detail how he cut her up, cooked her, how long it took to eat her, the whole thing, what he made, and all this kind of stuff.
horrible.
And to me, that takes being sadistic to a whole new level. He wasn't satisfied with just torturing and killing this girl. He had to torture her family as
Yeah.
well.
It's got
But it's
control.
also what got him caught. The letter is also what got him caught. I firmly believe that Grace reached out beyond the grave and got him killed, or got him caught, and eventually executed. But in fact, my truck is named Grace after her. So, this new documentary or this new movie that came out about Dahmer just a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I first tried to watch it, I thought I can't watch it. It's too slow, And I went back and I gave it another shot, and I'm glad I did because they didn't really focus on what he had done and all that. Wasn't the focus of the film. The focus of the film was the victims, and it really circled around the woman that lived across the hall from him and how many times she had reported him. Um, the law enforcement just on a lot of these cases just really dropped the ball on these people because he had abducted a how old was he? I think 15-year-old kid,
Something like that.
and he had gotten away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he was drugged. And everything, and he was trying to tell the cops what he convinced the cops that this naked young man was his gay lover, and they let him take him back to his apartment.
Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's simply because back then, especially, it was a very homophobic atmosphere. It was actually legal. I know in California for a while, it was actually legal to roll and rob homosexuals.
Mm-hmm.
If you did it to homosexuals, you were fine. Cops didn't care. But so yeah, we've came a long way, but not far enough. But we came a long way.
Mm-hmm.
That don't get me wrong. This stuff, and I know it's very, very dark. I know it's very, very sad, but knowledge is power, folks.
Right.
And if you know what to look for, and you just see how somebody's acting, maybe that red flag would go up. Never ignore your red flags. Never.
There were red flags also. Another story in 1974 that we all know. Maybe you don't know the name, but you'll know the story. In New York, there was a man named Ronald DeFeo Jr. And there were all kinds of red flags. There was constantly fighting with his father, reports where he was on drugs, just constantly a bad guy.
Right.
And he had a father, a mother, and 4 or 5 siblings. And one night in 1974, in Amityville, New York, he blew them all away in the middle of the night, which is where you hear the Amityville Horror, the family that lived in after. But yeah, that's a true story. So when they had interviews with some of the neighbors, they said, "Oh yeah, he was a bad card. You know, he was always fighting." So the red flags were there, but they didn't do anything. They don't, you know. So sometimes, like you said, the red flags are there. But
Well, and a lot of times these as young children, the red flags will be there. But nobody wants to think of their kid like that,
mm-hmm.
you know, and they want to make excuses for them, you know, and they're, you know, killing animals, dissecting animals. Well, he's just curious. Maybe he's going to be a scientist, you know, that type of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is amazing. And I'm going to touch on abused women for a second. You know, actually abusive relationships, period. It is amazing what you can get used to, because a lot of people in abusive relationships will make excuses, you know, like that. You know, well, you know, it's just they have a hard time when they're drinking. They you know, they promise they're not going to do it again. I can fix them. That
Oh, I
type.
heard a lady one time that went into in a relationship. Her boyfriend was constantly beating her.
Mm-hmm.
And some of her girlfriends, this is true story. This is now decades ago. Won't give a name, but they said, "Why are you staying with this abusive boyfriend?" They were living together. It was he was hurting her,
Yeah.
and she said, "Quote." I didn't hear it, but I heard what she said. Made excuses for him, like you said. Well, I talked to him about that, about him hitting me and him hurting me,
Mm-hmm.
but he told me that he wouldn't treat me like that if he didn't love me,
Yeah.
and she believed it.
Yeah. You know, and they'll tell themselves, you know, and like I said, it's not just women. It's there's abusive women out there also, you know, and the male's being abused. I mean, it's not
Mm-hmm.
very, you know, it's not as common as the flip side of the coin, but they, like I said, they make excuses for them, and a lot of times I say they're convinced it's their fault.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that battered woman syndrome. You know, I recently watched a show, Killing Sally.
I haven't seen that. No.
It's about the two bodybuilders out of California, and she ended up shooting him twice with a shotgun,
Oh wow.
and she got put in prison. Now, I'm not. You hear about how violent she was in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship and all this kind of stuff, but he was too. And he didn't. He was seeing somebody else. He was going to try to break up with her. They were married, but you know, even the kids talk about, you know, and they show the police video of when they had her when they had her in custody. And to me, if you listen to not what she says, but what the kids are saying,
Mm-hmm.
I think she was almost validated in my eyes about from what she did. Don't get me wrong, she was no princess.
Sure.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing that got her is they, and I'm not real. It was kind of a, they didn't go in depth for this a lot, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But they said the shotgun that she shot him with was a pump. Okay, now a pump will hold 3 shells with the plug and 5 shells without the plug.
Mm-hmm.
They said that she shot him once, went back to the bedroom and reloaded, and came back and shot him again. Now,
Wow.
there's not many people that I know that will keep just one shell in a pump shotgun if you've got the shells there. And I don't know. It just didn't add up. So I don't. I don't know. That struck me as strange.
Sure.
Because she said she shot him once, and the first time she hit him in the midsection, and he was still coming at her. Well, this guy was on steroids. He was,
Mm.
you know, 6'1", 6'2", or
Big
bigger,
guy.
and 45 pounds or something like that, and just massive. Well, that's not to me that's not out of the realm of possibility. He was still coming at her, and that's why she shot him again.
Mm-hmm.
But blood spatter and all that said she shot him while he was on the ground, and the second time she shot him in the face. But it's an interesting show, because they interviewed. She's still alive. She's I think she just got out. Yeah, she just got out of prison not too long ago.
It's called Killing Sally.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to watch that. Killing Sally, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested. Sounds interesting.
But I don't think her attorney did her a whole lot of favors.
Okay. I'd like to see that. Okay.
Yeah. And I suggest you watch the new Dahmer movie too.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet either. So
yeah.
Of course, we talk about serial killers. We got a little bit of time left, but we can't have a show about true crime and serial killers. We're talking about the one that everybody knows, Charles Manson. I mean, and I just can't get over name. And I'm not excusing him, but I just cannot get over how people followed him. That he had this power over them. That they did whatever little Charlie Manson wanted them to do, even murder. So they must have. That's part of the narcissism, isn't it?
Well, and that's what we were talking about a while ago. The whole manipulation thing. He was a master of manipulation. He never really killed anybody.
Mm-hmm.
He just ramrodded the whole thing.
He controlled it like puppets.
Right. Unfortunately, a guy named Tex did most of the killing. But
yep.
He orchestrated everything, but you have to understand what he was targeting these young people that were, they were coming to LA to make their name known and all that kind of stuff.
They really had nobody.
Yeah, they didn't have anybody, and he would take them in, and they were all on, LSD and everything. And there's even a theory out there that he was part of the MK Ultra project.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hear him talk, it's Elaine, if you're talking about the one in Florida, she used a pistol. But she killed seven men. But
wow.
That's a crazy jailhouse interview. Whew.
Man.
But he was technically not a serial killer. He was a cult leader.
He was a puppet master.
Yeah. And what he did to, Sharon Tate was just horrific.
Oh, that just
or what they did, not he did, but what they did. But
a thrill kill, basically. So,
well, he was trying to start a race war.
Yeah.
He was trying to make it look like a bunch of black people did it, and so he could start a race war, what he called Helter Skelter, which he got from the Beatles. The funny thing is he actually moved himself and his family in to I believe it was the drummer's house of the Beach Boys.
Yeah, there was somebody else living there though at the time, wasn't it? And it was Roman Polanski? No,
Roman Polanski was Sharon Tate's husband.
That was okay. But he wasn't there at the time though when that happened.
No. But the drummer, he was there.
The drummer was there. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But he left and then came back, and then Manson had pretty much taken over the house.
Yeah.
Literally. And I mean, he got his feelings hurt because he wasn't as good a songwriter and singer as he thought he was. Bottom line, it's all ego, ego. These super egos, man, and it's crazy.
And a footnote to that story: they tore that house down. Obviously, who would want to live there? Like they tore down O.J. Simpson's house.
Mm-hmm.
When he killed Nicole. Well, allegedly. So we got to put that footnote in there.
Yeah, quit. But they tore down Dahmer's apartment building. They tore down Gacy's house.
I'm surprised they didn't tear down the Amityville house.
Yeah.
With all that was going on. So, well, Tex, looks like we're out of time. This was a great topic. I mean, it was dark, but it needs to be told, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, unfortunately, we have, I wish we could say we didn't, but we've got serial killers out there. We've got people that just, what we talked about, thrill kill. I mean, we talked about people that had reasons why they did it, as lame as they were. But some people just do it for the fun of it, and that's what's really scary when the human conscience is just gone. So, interesting talk, Tex, and appreciate you coming on tonight and kind of filling us in, and maybe we can kind of have a part 2 of this if you like, kind of get some more updated information on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, now this is being simulcast not only on my channel, Van Buren Variety, but it's also on Tex's channel, Texas Front Porch. So I know I've got a few subscribers on Van Buren Variety that have not subscribed to Texas Front Porch. So I would encourage you to go over to Texas, that's TEX''S, Front Porch, see what they've got on that channel over there and subscribe. And those of you on Texas Front Porch, if you haven't subscribed, please show me some love. So go to Van Buren Variety, that's Van Buren Variety, and hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. So
yeah, because you got a lot of good guests on here. That banjo, golly, what was his name?
Tony Ulrich.
Oh man,
I had him for 3 shows.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
And I'm going to have him back because we didn't cover everything the last time. So be looking for him. If you liked him the first 3 times, you'll see him again sometime. So, all right, well, Tex, I appreciate you being on the show, and I definitely will be guest on your show pretty soon too.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for tonight. This is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Again, if you have not subscribed to Texas Front Porch, please go subscribe, and I guarantee you, you will find some very, very interesting topics. I'm proud to be a part of that channel as executive producer. And those of you, like I said, on Texas Front Porch, please hop over on Van Buren Variety and hit the subscribe button, because we'd love to have some more subscribers and more listeners. And you never know what you're going to get, hence the word variety. So that's all for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bob Van Buren. I will see you next week. Good night.